Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. Today, we're going to work on wrapping up our Kansas trip. Jacob still had a day and a half to hunt. We're going to announce some new things that we're doing, and we're going to talk about some recent hunts, and we're going to do our Q&As right here at the front end of it. One thing about the Q&As that we're changing up, we're going to a video format on the Q&As. That means that when you go to submit your question, you're going to be prompted to do a video. So you can just use your phone, film it in selfie mode, and 1 to 2 minutes long. It can be you in the field. It can be you at your house asking a question, whatever the case may be. I'd personally like to get some that are like you're in the field and you're like showing us a scrape or something like that, or whatever the situation may be. Make sure the audio's good. Make sure the video looks good, because we will be using it on the video podcast. But that's going to be the new way to submit questions. So we're going to move to that here in the next couple weeks. If you have submitted a Q&A already over the last, say 3 weeks or so, I would go ahead and redo it as a video Q&A submission, because we got like over 100 questions in here, and I'm sorry, we just can't get to all of them. So if you go and redo your question as a video, we're going to get to it a lot faster, especially if you're on the front end of it and you're one of the very first ones. So I think we've only got one submission so far. So y'all go fill those out. Go do that. Also, you can drop an image in there as well. So you can upload your video. If you asking your question, you can also drop an image. So if you're asking about a property, you can actually drop in a map screenshot. You can drop in a photo of what maybe the cover looks like that you're asking about. Maybe you're asking about a scrape. Maybe you're asking, whatever the case may be, you can drop those in there as well, so we have the most context possible to answer it and to potentially show to some of our guests who we might ask to get help on some of these questions. So anyways, I'm excited about that. Jacob, what's up?
Doing good. Not great, but doing good. So,
why aren't you doing great?
Well, Kansas. We'll talk about that later. But I got a really big hunt.
Dude, Kansas ruined Jacob's whole hunting season.
Yeah.
He went there with high hopes, and it just crushed him.
I've seen more big bucks, both from the tree, but also just not from the tree.
Now he's got like mature buck depression.
No, I've seen more big bucks in Kansas in 7 days than I've seen in 18 years in Alabama hunting. So we'll just put that out there. But we're going to get over to Q&A.
That's why I put on our Patreon meeting the other day, where I was like, I think that the way as Southerners you have to approach going and hunting a place like that is it's got to be like it's like a different species. I'm just hunting. It's like hunting mule deer. It's just different species. It's not like we're hunting pine goats. They're hunting corn-fed whitetails out there. Anyways, all right, yeah, we'll do the Q&As. So I just kind of explained how to do the new Q&A format. So, like I said,
links down in the show notes, or you go to southernoutdoorsman.com. Again, there's a tab there for listener Q&As. Get that submitted, get the video submitted, photos, and it should make it even better, because then we're going to be able to hear your voice while we're actually working through our questions and putting it together.
Yeah, and definitely also as the season kind of starts to wind down, getting into January and February, we are going to do some actual full Q&A episodes to try to work through the back catalog, because like I said, we got a whole bunch of them. All right, this one is from Buddy Large from Alabama. He said, love the show. My question is, can you once again explain the use of topos and how it affects deer travel? I've hunted over 47 years, taken a lot of bucks, but still struggle with interpreting topo maps as one of my main tools for hunting. All right, so Jacob, I'm going to let you go first. What are some of the, just baseline, if you're going to look at a topo map, some things that you should pay attention to?
Probably the first one is, how much elevation change do you have on a property? If the elevation change, or as we can say, topography change on the property is only 10 to 20 feet, that still may dictate some movement, but it's not going to be as drastic as it is going to be if you're talking 50, 60, 100, 200, 300 feet or more change on a property. So we've had podcast guests in the past talk about, it seems that in certain areas, like, again, big river bottoms out in, I'm going to say, eastern Arkansas, where you have these, what they call red oak ridges, it might be an elevation change of 3 to 5 feet. That's a ridge out there in the swamps and these river bottoms that these deer like to run the edges of. That would be something that would be based off topographical I can't talk here. Topographical feature, elevation change that sometimes won't pull up on a topo map. So that can be like super simple, something that you can kind of overlook in some of those environments. Versus if you're like where we hunt in hill country, where we have very easily 60 to 100 foot elevation changes in a lot of areas, it's very, very easy to read those topo maps and actually kind of figure out the certain spots that deer are more than likely going to use. And one great example would be what we talk about a bunch of the podcasts and guests, like Joey Youngblood talked about, Ryan Elders talked about, some of these mountain guys, what they call gaps or a saddle, a low spot on a ridge that a deer can either navigate directly through from one side of the ridge over the top to the other side. It's a low spot for them to cross through, or a spot they can run the edge of on one side of the ridge and actually kind of sit check anything that's up in that saddle in a spot that typically you're going to find some scrapes if there's quite a few deer using it. Other topographical features that guys kind of have talked about a bunch of the podcasts is thermal hubs, where you have multiple drainage systems all coming together in one spot of a creek. And it's an area that a buck can come through. He can drop down below that thermal hub, below where all those drainages come together, and he can scent check anything up above him, specifically in the early mornings before the sun has really warmed up the earth in order for thermals to rise. So you're still having a falling thermal, or also in the evenings when the thermals switch, and again, the thermals pull down. And then also another thing, and it's kind of to do with topo, but also just like a feature that you can look at, and we've talked about this in the podcast, these low spots in these clear cuts. You get a big ridge top and you have a low drainage that runs up in there that they've cut all the way across. That little low spot, which may show up on some topo maps if it's, again, pretty aggressive terrain. Some topo maps, it might not show it very well.
It might be just one line that goes up through there.
One little wavy line.
Yep.
Could be that ditch. And that's something that a lot of times I personally seen, I know Andrew's seen this too and other podcast guests, that bucks will specifically use those little low spots to go up into that clear cut and also come out of that clear cut as well. They kind of navigate. They can kind of stay hidden. They can smell everything up and around them, but also it's a spot that typically is going to have a little more cover. They can kind of run up through there without having to expose themselves instead of being up on the top of the ridge of the clear cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to link in the description a video that we did of a buck that I shot 2 years ago. And in that video, like, we walk through the whole hunt and like I shoot the buck and everything, but also we cut in a whole bunch of maps and do a voiceover of exactly how everything laid out. And we show the topo features and we show the setup and where the deer came from and where he was going to. And I think that'll be pretty helpful because it'll kind of show you a real world example. But just what I would add to that, maybe another generic thing to look for is when you're looking at your topo lines, look at where they stack up and they get closer together. Like, look where they get tighter. And that's going to be like I can't remember. I guess it might have been Drew Atkinson was talking about this from Arkansas. It's like a terrain edge.
Drew, Chuck Young talked a lot about it.
Yeah, so like just how you have a habitat edge where, say, a clear cut meets a pine stand, you also have terrain edges where you've got a ridge that runs around and it's not too steep, and then all of a sudden you hit one part and it's really, really steep. And deer will travel those terrain edges just like they'll travel a habitat edge. And if you can find a terrain edge that runs into a habitat edge, then you're in really good shape.
Yeah.
And one of the bucks I shot last year is in a spot just like that. There's a terrain edge where there's this like real steep hill on my hunting club, and it's really like the steepest hill on the property. And it comes up to a point, and like right before it gets to the top, it gets a little bit steeper towards the top. And these bucks are basically working the edge of where that military crest is. The military crest being where the spot where the hill like really kind of drops off and rounds off and goes down. Military crest, if you're out there, you can tell you're on the military crest because if you're standing on the military crest, you can see all the way to the bottom of the hill and you can turn around and see the top of the hill. So deer will actually work that, and that's how I killed 6-point at my club last year. Yep. So that's another pretty basic thing that applies in most areas. Even if you're in an area that doesn't have really aggressive terrain and really big hills, you can still find that. It might only be 2 or 3 topo lines, but if you find where they stack up, that's a good spot to at least start and go look, because that's going to funnel deer movement around that. So those are some basic things I'd look for. But go watch that video that I'm going to link in the description. I think it'll be good.
Also, the ditch funnels that Bobby Worthington talked about in our scouting video we did with him and his podcast is exactly what that is. It's where that ditch comes up on that ridge line, and all those topo lines stack around the head of that ditch, and they're going around the top of that thing. Mm-hmm. And again, typically you go in one of those areas, because I found a couple of those on public this year, you're going to have all the concentration of trails right at the head of that ditch, right where those topo lines are stacked up. It's going to be right there. That's where they're cutting across, and they kind of fan back out on the ridge after they cross that point. So also something else to think about with topo or topography and elevation change is a lot of times the deer, not all the time, but a lot of times the deer are going to use the path of least resistance working through that topography. So again, if there's a low spot cutting across a ridge, there's a bench, like a little flat spot on the side of a fairly steep ridge, they're going to use that as well. And if you kind of look at that when you're actually out there scouting, if you're naturally kind of working your way through like on the side of a ridge and there's just an area that's a little bit easier for you to walk versus something else, more than likely you're going to find deer sign right there. You're going to find droppings. You're going to find tracks. You're going to find rubs and scrapes potentially right there, because this is the natural point on that ridge line that the deer and you find the path of least resistance walking wise. And again, you kind of walk yourself right into a spot the deer are really using.
Yep, definitely. All right, we're going to move on. Next question. This one is from Jacob Mitchell, and for a state, he put Georgia, Texas, and Montana. Interesting. Just listen to your podcast with Travis Murray. He mentioned be as quiet as possible, which is common sense. He said he mentioned that if you step on a stick, stop for 2, 3, 5 minutes, then continue as quietly as possible. I was just curious on what y'all's reaction is when you're like stepping on a big patch of dry leaves that are definitely going to make a crunch noise for the next 20 to 30 steps. You have deer walk in a 3-step sequence compared to our 2-step sequence, so I try to sound like a deer when I walk through the woods, but curious about y'all. So I love this question. Actually, this is I do 2 or 3 different things here. I think one thing that is kind of important to know off the bat is one thing that Travis, like a good little tidbit that he put in that conversation was, it's not necessarily the noise that's scaring the deer. It is if it's like a metallic noise, like if you're climbing sticks together or something like that. Yeah. But when it comes to leaves, sticks, things like that, it's not so much the noise, it's more the cadence. So when he said, when you step on a stick, just stop for 2 or 3, 4, whatever, couple minutes. He says that because that's what most critters do. Specifically, that's what prey animals do. If you watch a deer, if you watch a turkey moving through the woods, if they snap a stick or something, they're going to stop. I mean, how many times have you seen even a doe walk out and she just stops and she just looks around for a couple minutes and then she keeps moving? I mean, they don't have really anywhere to go. They don't have anywhere to be except wherever they want to go. So they're never in a hurry. They can like kind of stop and observe their surroundings. So that's why he says the cadence is really important. Now, when I get to an area where I just can't be quiet, like I want to be quiet, but if I can't be quiet, there's 3 things that I'll do. I'll either, if I have my trekking pole, I'll use that trekking pole as kind of a third leg, and I'll make it sound like a deer walking, where I'll just add a third step, like I'll step, and then hit my trekking pole down, and I'll try to make it loud. I'll try to, like really stomp it in the leaves, sound like a deer foot. And then, just move through and move maybe 10, 15 yards, stop, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and then move a little bit more. That's one way that I'll do it. The second way that I'll do it is I'll yelp like a turkey. So if I don't have a climbing stick or a trekking pole or whatever that I can punch down in the leaves, then I'll actually stop and yelp like a turkey. And that works extremely well. I've been doing that for probably almost 10 years now, and it works really, really well sneaking up on deer. And then the third thing I'll do is just the cadence without anything else. Like you don't have to yelp like a turkey. You don't have to sound like a deer. Like you can still just walk on 2 feet, but just go really slow, like walk 3 or 4 steps and stop for a couple seconds. Walk 3 or 4 steps, stop for like a minute. And, it might be a 30-yard patch that's super long or super loud, and it might take you 5 minutes to go that far, but it's okay, especially if you're in close to where you think you're actually going to be hunting. So what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, guys, I just ran into this yesterday in a spot I hunted. It was a lot more hardwoods, and it was super loud and crunchy. One thing to get away, I actually had a guy, listener, message us about this, talking about walking, not cracking sticks. One thing that's helped me stop from doing that, cracking, like just breaking a bunch of sticks walking in the woods. Some areas is a lot harder than others. But one thing that really helps me is wearing a hiking boot, okay, with a soft sole, not a very stiff. Like a lot of guys will get like one of these, and I've done it too in the past. Get a really pair of nice hiking boots, not rubber boots, that has a really stiff sole. Like, oh man, I feel like Iron Man. I walk through the woods and like you get great traction, all that stuff. Problem is you can't feel what's underneath your foot very well. So you're much more likely, especially in the past when I've done that with some of my other stiffer boots. You're just walking. You have no feeling of what's underneath your foot, and it's hard to not break a stick unless you're walking and looking at each step. And even that, you could have stuff underneath the leaves that you don't really see that you could break. With the softer sole, I'm actually, and I tried this yesterday, I can step on sticks, and as long as I don't put my foot down super hard and I'm placing them as I'm walking, it doesn't break the stick most times. Mm-hmm. Or if it does, it's not as loud of a crack as when I was wearing my stiffer sole boots. I've learned with rubber boots, I can't feel crap underneath my feet in the rubber boots, and It's like way worse than even like sometimes the stiffer.
I feel like I'm wearing
hikers.
clown shoes.
Yeah, and it's like you have less foot dexterity to be able to place your foot. Because a lot of times you're stepping over stuff, you're just not putting your foot straight forward. Like you're kind of having to, I'm kind of like angling my foot, stepping in between sticks if I'm going over like a brush top or something, or like a down tree. And I get a lot more flexibility using a hiker than I do with a rubber boot. So that's one thing that helps a lot. That doesn't help you, though, with walking through leaves. Leaves are loud, period. I'll do the turkey yelp thing. My natural voice yelp's not super great. And I don't necessarily always carry a diaphragm call with me. That's fine. But I've been around a bunch of turkeys this fall. Mm-hmm. Very rarely they're making any kind of sound.
Yeah.
They're vocalizations. They are making a ton of racket scratching the leaves.
Yep.
So like what I did yesterday and what I've done more so now is not even doing the turkey yelps, but it's just walk, because they have a 2-step cadence just like we do. And I will walk 20 yards, stop, sit there for maybe a couple seconds, and I'll start raking the leaves.
Loud.
Like, intentionally sounding like a turkey, like being loud, and just doing that as I'm walking into her spot. And again, a lot of places we hunt, there's quite a few turkeys. If you live in an area, there's like, you haven't seen a turkey there in 10, 15 years, might not work, okay?
Yeah.
But a lot of places that we hunt, there's turkeys there, and right now they're in big flocks. And like I had a flock come by me last weekend I was hunting a spot, and on the way in, I busted a flock up, and it might have been the same flock. And then I went down the ridge, got set up, and then they came back through, and dude, they sounded like a 10-piece band coming through. I mean, just making so much racket. No vocalizations, just scratching, walking the leaves. And then I had deer come by 45 minutes later. And it's like the deer, I don't think care. As long as you sound like a turkey and you're scratching the leaves and stuff like that, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's when you just walk on a straight path for 150 yards, especially if you're getting close to where you want to hunt at, and you're just going snapping stuff as you're going, that's a little bit different than, again, walking 10, 15 yards, stopping for 10, 20 seconds, scratching the leaves, and then look around, glass, look for sun, whatever, and just keep on moving. That's how I walk naturally anyways. I don't ever necessarily, unless I've got to cover a very long distance. If I get within the 400 yards where I'm going to hunt, I typically slow a lot more down, then walk 10, 20, 30, 40 yards, stop, scratching the leaves a little bit, look around, and then keep on moving. And to me, it works really, really well. Typically, if I bust a deer like that, it's because I get right up on top of them, like probably within 50 yards or so or less, and they see me, and they're like, oh, crap, and they skedaddle.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I
like
agree.
I actually, that hunt, one of the hunts this past weekend, I was doing this walking through a logging road that had some pines growing up on it, some saplings, and I was walking 10, 15 feet and stopping and just looking around because I'm like, there's got to be sign here. I was really looking for sign. I ended up busting 5 does that were right in front of me, 35 yards. They never saw me, but they blew, heard me, like I probably cracked a stick or something. They blew, and I just like stood there. And I'm kind of like in some pines, but I can see out from it. And I see them, they kind of run off, they cross the drainage, they get on the other hillside, and they stop, look around, look back at me. They can't see anything. The wind's great. They don't hear anything else, and they just go back to feed on acorns. And I'm literally there for 30 minutes watching them. I'm like, this is great. It's not really where I want to hunt at. Those are here. That's great. Let's try and get up to some better cover. And they just kind of fed on and, ran 50 yards. They never saw me, never smelt me, but they heard something, blew, got alarmed. And then after that, they were within 75 yards of me just feeding down the ridgeline.
Yep.
So
Not too shabby.
Yeah. And also, it's amazing how much more you see when you walk that way versus if you just power walk to a spot. I think most of us, if you're listening to this podcast and you're hunting and you have some woodsmanship skills, most guys aren't doing that all the way up to their tree stand, unless maybe it's dark or whatever. But even then, I still try to ease my way in the last couple hundred yards. But it's amazing when you walk like that and you have your head up and not always looking at the ground. First off, how much more sign you're going to see, rubs and scrapes, but also how often you'll run into and see deer at a distance. Some you may bump, but you never hear them when they run off, but you can visually see them. Other times you just walk through the woods and you'll see a deer on the side of a ridge just feeding.
Oh, yeah.
Or you'll listen. Another thing, if you go real slow like that and you stop and just like take it all in for a minute or two and just kind of look around as you're easing your way in, if you're in hardwoods, you will hear the deer walking.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how it was kind of with that doe before I bumped him. I thought I heard something like walking around. I'm like, sounds like a deer, but I'm like, it's pretty early. They ended up bumping them, and then, again, they hung out within 75 yards feeding. So it's amazing what all you can pick up on if you kind of slow down as you're working into a spot.
Yep, definitely agree. All right, last up, we got Chris. He didn't leave his last name or state. How would you go about scouting an area? I'm fairly new to hunting and don't have a lot of free time due to work. I've walked about 3 miles through an area and could not locate any sign at all. I was seeing nice deer movement through a persimmon grove, but now the deer have seemed to vanish. I never can locate beds and only saw 3 rubs in the entire area. One, however, was as big as my calf. So, yeah, definitely past the time of persimmons. Persimmons probably about done by now for sure. This has happened to me a whole bunch of times, going and walking really far and not seeing anything.
Last couple hunts have been like that for me.
Yeah, it's been a little bit rough here lately. I don't know what you're walking through. If you're not already, one thing that I would definitely focus on, and this is something we talk about a whole bunch, but look at the habitat diversity on whatever place you're hunting. Like, are you walking edges, or are you just kind of like walking down ridge points, like, or just walking through the woods kind of randomly? Like, covering 3 miles, that's really good. But if you can cover 3 miles of high odds areas where it's like, if I've got my big hunting club and I could go and I could just go walk through the pines and just walk around looking for sign, or I could get on the edge of those pines where they meet a hardwood bottom or where they meet a clear cut. I'm going to spend those 3 miles walking those edges rather than walking the interior of really anything at that point.
Unless there's a good terrain feature that makes sense while they would go through it. Because I did that. Like, I hunted the same spot I was talking about where I was real loud walking in. I took a big loop going back into there was a certain focal point I had where there's 2 different pine thickets, hardwood drainage ran up through them, creek system all right there that I really wanted to work into. But I worked the edge of the pines, just off the edge of the pines and the hardwoods the whole way where all these ditches are coming out of this pine thicket. I'm like, oh, I ought to find scrapes or rubs somewhere along these ditches, and covered. It was just under a mile before I got to the spot I hunted. I found a couple tracks, but no rubs, no scrapes, no droppings, nothing. And I'm like, well, this isn't great. Ended up getting to this one spot, and then all the sign was in this one little spot where these 2 different drainages came together. Pine thickets on each side, had a creek right there adjacent to it. 5 hot scrapes right there. All the trails are coming out, and you could start seeing the sign, and ended up where I decided to hunt. But it's like, if I would have stopped way back there just randomly because the spot looked good, there was no evidence of deer necessarily spending much time coming out of that pine thicket on that side of it, which is adjacent to where some people have hunted, and this place has been absolutely pounded, but I don't think people have gone in this way. They've been going in a different way, hunting higher up on the ridge. And we know there's bucks there. There's does there. I've seen some does all in that area, and ended up having a buck about 15 minutes after dark. I'm standing there at the base of the tree waiting for Thomas to walk back to me because he took a different route coming to me than the way he went in, and I had a deer come out of the pine thicket. I'm standing there listening. Deer comes out of the pine thicket, comes down, hits one of those scrapes, and starts thrashing the ground. I tried to film it, and it didn't really work great on my phone, but came out and started opened up one of those scrapes and started thrashing the licking branch like 70 yards from me. And I didn't want to turn my light on or anything like that. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, he'll probably hang out until Thomas gets here, and that's exactly what he did. Freaking stood there working that licking branch for a while, and then kind of walked around a little bit for probably 10 minutes, and then finally Thomas got to me, and they're off. He went back to the pine thicket.
Dang.
So, but yeah. Anyways, it was a little late. He should have came out about 20 minutes earlier. Would have been great.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, you can walk. Like, I've told Thomas, my brother, like, there are areas you could walk right now, and there are deer there, but you cannot find specifically buck sign. You can find droppings, you can find tracks, but for whatever reason, the bucks are not laying down sign in those spots. But if you just shifted a little bit, like got back into the edge of the thicket, or, walk your little drainage that goes into that thicket, you could find some of the hottest sign you've ever found, but it's like in little pockets. It's not just everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that happened actually in Kansas, in the spot that I ended up killing my buck. Me and Seth first walked through there, and when we initially went into the spot, we walked like kind of close to the property line. We were trying to cover that habitat edge, like I was just talking about, and it didn't really look that good. We were like kind of underwhelmed by it. We're like, I don't know. So we went in there, we did a little calling sequence, did a ground setup, and then when we were looping back out, this is one thing that I always do, is I always try to loop. I never walk in and walk out on the same trail so I can see more. So when we loop out, we're only looping like, I don't know, 70 yards max over from where we were. And there was all the sign. And we were just like right off of it. Some of it was like 40 yards off. We literally walked within 40 yards of the sign and didn't see it at first. And then when we saw the sign, we're like, oh, this is a good spot. Cool. And then we came back, hunted it twice, killed a buck on the second hunt. So like, that's the other thing too, is like, you can be pretty close and just walk by it. That's why it's good to kind of break up your pattern, and even like getting into a high odds area, kind of zigzag around a little bit, or have if you got two people, y'all split up, and me and you do this all the time when we scout. We'll split up and we'll walk within shouting distance of each other. You know, like I can usually see you through the woods, and we'll just kind of split up, and one of us will usually find something, and then we'll kind of adjust as we need to. But that's a really good way to do it if you got a buddy. But if you don't have a buddy to go scout with you, then you can do that yourself. Just kind of zigzag through an area, do circles, in those higher odd spots, especially if you find something. Like if you start finding some sign, spend a little bit more time in there and kind of bounce around and pinball around in that one spot and look around.
Especially if you hit sign, like say you hit like some rubs or scrapes and you're working the edge, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep working this edge, and it dries up. It's only like one spot. You need to go back to it and then go with the sign, like go towards the thicket or go directly away from the thicket, and see if the sign continues going in a certain direction. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But also, I'll say this: I like doing the same thing, not ever really walking out the same way I came in. Be careful when you do that. There's some environments you don't want to do that in. Number one, swamps. Do not do that in a swamp. Go out the same way you came in. If it's dark, if it's daylight, okay, you can kind of see, but it dark.
Oh yeah, don't do it in the dark.
Don't do it in the dark in the swamp. Also, I learned this on one of these hunts. The hunt I saw those does at. I decided to take another route because I did a huge loop into this area. I'm like, oh, there's another road bed. It kind of works back to the truck that's like 250 yards from me. I'm going to work that direction instead of doing this big loop back.
Whoops.
It took me as long to get to that road bed as it could have if I would have took the 3/4 mile loop back the other direction.
Oh.
Because when I was up in the tree, I'm like, oh, it's like thick pines. I'm like up in this pine stand, and there's understory underneath it. I'm like, oh, this stuff looks like it's like waist high. It's no big deal. I can just I can cut across, hit the side of this ridge line, and work it to this next log in the road. I get down on the ground and start walking at dark, get my lights and everything, and I had to drop into this little bottom. I had to cross this bottom. There's no way I can't go around the head of it. It's like just thick stuff all up top. Can't go down the bottom, super thick stuff. I get down that little bottom, and it is pine trees, pine saplings that are over my head high in greenbrier and just briars in my face from like ankle to face, just briars. I'm like, there's no way. Like I have to go through it. Like I'm looking up and down. I got to go through it. Had to push through that crap, and it was like that most of the time. And then the worst part was when I got within 50 to 60 yards of the roadbed.
Oh, that's where it's the worst.
I get to 50, 60 yards of the roadbed, and I'm like going through all these briar stuff. I'm kind of like, doing the briar shuffle, like take my foot and I'm like pushing stuff over and kind of like working through it. And then all of a sudden it is a wall of pine saplings that are 12 foot tall.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at Onyx, looking at the maps. I'm like, there's a roadbed here. I've never walked it, but I knew there's a roadbed here. But then I'm like second guessing, like, is the roadbed all this?
Oh,
okay.
No.
And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've got to push through. And when I tell you, I walked up and I like weaved up into it. And I'm like pulling briars out of my face. And I'm looking at this wall of pine saplings. Like, you can't see. They're stacked in between each other like 12 inches. I'm wider than 12 inches, by the way. I don't know if y'all can tell. So I come up to it. I'm like, I've got to push through it. And I just got to see if there's opening on the other side. And this is after took me 25 minutes to come.
You're sweating,
200 yards.
bleeding.
Oh, yeah. It's cold, but I'm sweating. Yeah. And
Is it that cold where you're steaming? Like there's steam coming and you can see it in your headlamp?
Oh, yeah. It was like 30-something, like 35 degrees. And I hit that wall, and I'm like, I just got to push through. So I take one arm, and I'm like, got my rifle in one hand, and I'm like pulling the pines a little bit out of the way, and I'm like just trying to squeeze through it. Okay?
Oh, my gosh.
And I had to do that for it was like 8 feet of that.
Were you using your climber?
No.
Okay, that would suck even worse.
No. I had my saddle stuff. I was using that little climbing platform I got, and anyways, dude, I pushed through, and I'm just getting hung up. Like, it's terrible. It's only like I didn't know if this was for 30 feet or if it's 9 feet. It was like 8 feet of this stuff. Finally pushed through it, and it was open. And I'm like, thank God. And got to it. And I'm like, that was terrible. And I still had, half-mile walk back to the truck. And it already took me 25 minutes just to walk that 200 yards.
That's always fun.
Yeah. I was like, and I'm cut. Like, dude, my hand healed up real good. My hand was so cut up, dude, coming through those briars.
Looked like you just got done rabbit hunting, probably.
No, it looked like I just got attacked by a cat is what it looked like. I'm like, dude.
I got a little tussle with a bobcat.
Dude, when I had my old job, I had a hunt like that where I was like, dove way off in a pine thicket. So it kind of goes back to like, don't walk. Like, be careful if you're walking through a pine thicket at dark.
Yeah.
Like when we did our hunt in Georgia, Josh Hilliard.
Yep.
When he was with First Light, he was hunting with us, and he tried to take a shortcut back up to a road, walking through a pine thicket. Oh, it's no big deal.
He took so long to get back. We're about to go look for him.
Yeah. I mean, we've been back for like an hour.
I'm like, man,
and
Josh,
that'd take forever to get out of the woods anyway.
He get eaten by a gator or something.
And dude, he came back and they were ripped, torn, tethered, bloody. And he's like, lesson learned, don't go walk into a pine thicket thinking it's a shortcut back up to the road. I should have took the loop back out that I knew. But anyways, just be careful with that because you might tear some stuff up or tear yourself up. But I had a hunt when I was at my old job, and it was like one of those hunts that I do. I was all cut up, bloody, and I took briars across the face. Okay.
And your old job, you were sales.
Yeah, I was in sales.
Like funeral home sales. So you're talking to people, at the funeral home.
I looked like I came back from Fight Club, okay? Dude, I had cuts on my face, literally like across my face. And this is before I had a beard. I just had a goatee, and it was across my cheeks, dude. Like all these cuts. And like my eyelid was all cut up. My hands were all cut up. Dude, I had to get to work Monday morning, and I looked rough. But boss, I try to clean up, but like I've got open cuts, like from scratches. And my boss, she was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I had a hell of a hunt. Got caught in a pine thicket."
You should have told her you got in a fight with a bobcat.
Had to fight my way out of it. It was rough. But dude,
I just imagine like you're in like your suit, you're in like your like custom suit or whatever, and your face is just like ripped up, and this person sitting across the table from you, like, is this who I want planning my estate?
Actually, I think that might have been during COVID when we had to wear masks.
Oh,
which was kind of helpful, but also kind of creepy because I had scratches above the mask across my eye.
That's even worse.
So yeah, anyway, that was rough. But like, you just note taking on that. Be careful. But yeah, that's the thing about down here is like, dude, there's just you get off in like one of those little spots, and especially if you're elevated, you're like, oh man, I can walk through that, and you get on the ground, the stuff's head high. I'm like, well, I gotta go that way, or I want to go that way. It's shorter back to the road, and a lot of times you just come out, bloody and tethered. Yeah.
Well, man, I hope that helps. I would like for you to maybe write in a video question, a little more context. Let us know what the advice, if it helps or not. But like I said, everybody, write in those, or I guess submit your video questions for the Q&As. We're going to move to those. It's going to be super fun. I'm excited about that format. So now let's talk about Kansas, wrapping up. So we did our Kansas hunt. We did I guess it was last week, we did the wrap up of that. Kind of broke down how our hunt ended up going. And we still had one day. You boys left. Listen, me and Caden.
I didn't. Me and Caden had the house ourselves. Seth left that night after the podcast. You left the next morning. So we had the next full day, and then we had that Friday. Next full day was Thursday. We had Friday morning, then we had to leave because I had to be back by Saturday morning.
Yep.
For a family gathering.
I had to be back for that same thing.
Yeah. So anyway, y'all left us. Me and Katie were like, man, we got this whole house to ourselves. This is wild. But we hunted the next morning, dude. And it was the first hunt we had where we get like in a few days where we got absolutely skunked. We moved trees. We were all excited. If you heard of the podcast, we were all excited. Like we found like the spot that we needed to sit where like the bucks had been like working down this it was it's a habitat edge. Also, one of the property lines was right there. Real small property we were on. But all the deer were working right down that edge, and we found like the tree to be in. Had all the scrapes around us, all the rubs. Literally sat that morning, did not see a deer at all.
Yeah.
Like that whole day.
That's wild.
Hunted,
I was shocked.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
Hunted there, and then we decided like, dude, we need to bounce because like we kind of ended up thinking like that parcel.
Also, by the way, that morning, I woke up that morning and y'all were hunting. And I woke up at like right at daylight, and I was like, I'm just gonna jump in the truck, go drive around, see if I can like see any deer, like glass up any deer. And I was thinking like maybe I could go glass something up for y'all to hunt that afternoon or something like that. And I went driving around, and I didn't see any deer driving around like at all. I saw zero.
Yeah.
And every other time we had driven around, we'd seen, I mean, at the very least, seen does.
Yeah.
But most of the time we were seeing bucks. I didn't see anything that morning.
Yeah. So we ended up just. We sat at that spot till like noon. Nothing happened. And one thing we realized, I think, in that spot, the spot that me and Katie hunted that we talked about in last week's episode, it is just one of these travel corridors. Like they're not bedding there. We thought they kind of were. Some does may kind of mess bedding around edges of it, but there's really not great bedding. Really not any great food right there. Like they are literally just coming from way down this creek system. They're crossing through this piece of public, and they're just working their way down. And they're either there or they're not there, and they're not there very long.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we need to go shift to something else. And we ended up that next day or that afternoon trying to go and spot and stalk that this big 8-point that we've seen. Like we all seen it like 3 or 4 times. He's right off one of the main roads in this little CRP patch. And we ended up going over there and trying to glass that deer. Never located that deer. Never saw a deer like in that spot at all that evening. Saw some quail. That was it. I was kind of got all excited about quail, but that was literally a wrap for the last day. And the next day, I told Caden, I'm like, hey, dude, let's just, like, I'll be honest, let's just sleep in because we got to drive, like, over, like, 14 hours back home. And I got to get home tomorrow night because, like, I cannot miss this family event the next morning. So I'm like, if we go hunt and we hunt for a few hours, you might have to drive, but like, dude, I'm going to be like beyond exhausted. Like, anyway, so we slept in the next morning until like 7 o'clock and got everything packed up, loaded up, and left by like 9:30 to make it back home. We still didn't get home till like 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock. It was rough. Get stuck in traffic.
I called y'all at like, it was pretty late. It was like 9:30 p.m. or something. Yeah. And y'all were like trying to get through Memphis and y'all, like the interstate was shut down.
We were in Arkansas, some tiny little highway. And we just came around the corner, and I'm like, oh, I see some blue lights. Okay, whatever. And everybody like slowed down. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I put that sucker in park, and we were there for an hour. Parked.
Oh, that sucks.
And like, dude, I had my 12-power binos, my Viper HDs. I was looking, like, we were just parked on the interstate. I'm looking at these cop cars and the fire trucks, and I'm like, I don't even see another car. Like, what are they at? And I'm like, there's got to be a wreck or something that happened. And dude, we sat there, got on the phone with you. I'm like, dude, we've been parked here. Like, we were making pretty good time. And then the time just got eaten up, just sitting there.
That sucks, especially when you still got like 5.5, 6 hours to drive.
Yeah, more. Yeah, and I'm like, this is not fun. But
yeah, it's pretty brutal. I'm genuinely shocked y'all didn't like see anything that last day.
Y'all jinxed us.
I probably did because me and Seth that night were like, y'all are killing one tomorrow. Y'all 100% are killing a buck tomorrow. No. But I said that like the last 3 days. I'm like, dude, there's just no way. Me and Seth were talking about it. I was like, there's no way they don't get a chance at something tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I said that like 3 days in a row. And you did get chances the first 2 times. The third time, not so much.
Nope.
Done got skunked.
Nope.
All right, so overall impressions of like the trip, the strategy, what you did right, what you did wrong, what's your, I don't know.
Everything worked
synopsis.
out great. I should have moved slower in the tree, or I would have had a giant dead.
That's what I'm saying.
That's all it came down. I had the opportunity. It wasn't a bunch of opportunities. Like, had like the one really good, like there's the one buck when we walked in the day before and jumped him up out of his bed with the doe. He was right there, like inside about probably 40 yards. I thought he was further, but he was closer. If I would have seen the deer, I could have shot him in the bed. He was a big deer. The next morning, called in the big deer, like the giant came right by. Should have been able to shoot him. I just moved too fast. It was like not being patient enough with the deer that came in that we called in that following morning. The day that you killed yours was what cost it. Like, if I would have just been slow and smooth pivoting to shoot, it would have worked. And also one thing, and I talked about this, I talked to our buddy Zach White about it, is because he's from Kansas, and I told him, like, that big deer had come in from my weak side, kind of crosswind to us coming into a spot. And he told me, he's like, dude, that is the reason why I started doing hybrid hunting when I'm hunting the Midwest or in the rut, and have like a little lock on with my saddle, just so like I can still sit in the saddle like I normally would, lean or sit in the saddle, but also I can freestand and really quickly and easily and quietly pivot and stand up and shoot like to weak side. And I brought a little lock on with me, and I started using that later on in the hunt, and it worked out fine, worked out great. But that also would have helped a little bit in that circumstance. Deer comes in from that weak side off your right side as a right-hand shooter. Just be able to, like, easy and slow and steady, just stand up on that stand instead of leaning and just turn and be able to shoot instead of having to try to spin in the saddle. But, yeah, I mean, everything worked. I mean, I don't really have any complaints. I mean, everything freaking worked. It was just like you got to execute on the opportunities you get.
That's what I'm saying. And the amount of really big deer that we found on that trip and put eyes on, I want to go back.
Well, that's why I told.
I like really, really want to go back.
I told Zach this. I called Josh Ireton afterwards because he killed a nice deer. Killed a super old buck in Kansas, and he was telling me he had all these opportunities because they were just hunting off the ground, hunting CRP and stuff, glassing bucks, which is complete opposite of what we did. Because listen, we didn't do anything we talked about doing. Okay, before we went, we were talking about going out there hunting CRP, hunting on the ground.
Oh yeah,
and
you're right.
We literally never
did not do that whatsoever.
I mean, me and Caden,
y'all did.
We did a little bit, kind of trying to like call and be on the ground and all that kind of stuff, and saw some bucks doing that. Just never had. Well, I guess had one opportunity. I just again, couldn't freaking see the deer. I'm looking here, and the deer's right there, locked down with the doe. But we never really did that. And to be honest, they didn't have a lot of opportunity because a lot of the people we ran around to didn't really set up super great for that. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, so we didn't do that. That was one thing we didn't do. But again, really didn't have to because we were able to kind of get in these little timber blocks and find where these deer were cruising through. But yeah, going back to it, it's like, dude, go back to Kansas. I would say be proficient shooting your bow. Personally, this is my thought, is be proficient shooting your bow out to 60 yards. Is one thing I would definitely do different next time I go back. Because I still have a tag. I could go back in December. Mm-hmm. The more and more I look at it, I'm trying to look at the dates and everything. They have their gun hunt going on right now. So I would have like the last 2 weeks of December to go, and we already have another hunt kind of booked that same time. So unless I went around Christmas, which then after Christmas we're going to Mississippi, I'm like, I don't know how that would work. But I would be proficient shooting at 60 yards because the problem is, the one thing we ran into, because we had that really nice 11-point come by that second last morning, the day we did the podcast. And he got to 47 yards, and I still don't think I could have shot him, even if I could shoot that far. I feel like 40 and in is what I really want, okay?
Yeah.
And there was still a little bit of stuff, but he got out. When he swung around us, he got up to 50, 55, and it was open. Oh. It was further than I wanted to. Like, I'm not going to shoot a deer that far.
Oh,
and it's like, if you were proficient shooting at 60.
Well, good for you for having restraint, because a lot of guys would have just sent one.
Well, he was right next. There's a property line right there. If I shoot him, he's going over there, and that guy I know hunts because he's got hay bale blind about 150 yards from us. And I'm like, he probably ain't going to let me go recover that deer, let alone if I even made a lethal shot. So, but yeah, he got out in the open at like 55 yards and never got any closer. But like, being proficient, I think 60 yards is a sweet spot, because one thing I learned in a lot of these spots, some of the funnels are not very tight.
A lot of them are not very tight.
It's like you have a stretch that's 80 to 100 yards wide that they're kind of just flowing through.
Yeah.
And then they kind of spread back out. It's like, yeah, you can sit in the middle of them, but you still need to be able to shoot 50-plus yards and in order to be able to cover everything. And in those woods, some of the woods you could hunt, like hunting these little wood blocks, some of them you could shoot 60 yards pretty easily in them. Some of them you couldn't. Like, it depends on like how high up the tree you get. Like, the higher you get in the tree, the harder it got because there was more sub canopy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would do that differently. But I mean, everything else worked fine. It's like we saw freaking big deer. Like, right around when that cold front hit, we saw big deer literally every single day except for that very last day. And the very last day, we didn't see anything. So it was like, okay, it is what it is at that point. But I think that would give you more confidence in those circumstances. And also, if you happen to hunt on the ground, spot and stock, it's hard to get real close to a deer inside 40 yards on the ground unless you had a lot of conditions. If it was real windy, you probably could do it. But, yeah, I mean, I think being proficient out to 60 yards, confident out to 60 yards, I think would just give you a little more versatility in that hunting circumstance. You can definitely go out there and kill one like you did. Sucker came in 10 yards, 9 yards, freaking hammer him. But like, I would want the flexibility and confidence to be able to shoot further. It would just be my thing.
Yeah, I think that would be a good plan. Are you down? Like, if we draw it again, are you down to just go back to the same area, do the same thing again, hunt that same funnel?
Probably. I mean, yeah, probably.
I don't know why you wouldn't, man.
I mean, yeah, probably.
I'm talking about, like, I was telling somebody this. Maybe it was on our Patreon Zoom room. We were talking about it. I was like, because I had someone ask me about you up there and like how you did in Kansas. I was like, he did everything right. He saw bigger deer than I did, and he got one in bow range. It just didn't work out, and that kind of thing happens. But like that again, I was talking to Zach about this too, because he was like, man, y'all should be proud because y'all have never even been to Kansas before. Well, I haven't been to Kansas. You've been there for something else. But
never hunted Kansas.
Yeah, you've never hunted Kansas. He's like, you never hunted Kansas before, and y'all like got right on the bucks in there. And I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, I feel good about like how quickly we were able to get on the bucks. And it was kind of like how I expected it to go. A lot of the time we were bouncing around a little bit, trying to hone in and figure out what the best spots were. And then when we locked down, I killed, you had one in bow range, and so it's like, but that was like the midway part of the trip. That was the halfway point when we locked down and started having success. Imagine if we just go back there in like a year or two, and day one, we already know the funnels that produced, and we can just jump straight into them and give them time to work. That's something that me and Seth talked about with that funnel. We're like, do we have enough time to let this funnel work for us? Like, because especially with some of these longer range funnels that you're hunting, like that funnel, you have to give it time. you're going to have to sit it 4 or 5 times sometimes to have that deer come by. And, just because you sit at one time and don't see anything, or you don't see the buck, doesn't mean it's the wrong spot. You just, it takes time. You got to be patient. That's kind of the nature of hunting the rut.
Well, we've seen in that one little parcel, and I'll say it's a little parcel, we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different bucks in 3 days, and 4 of them were being shooters, never the same deer.
Yep.
Never the same deer. It
Yep.
was from my understanding, for every deer. Actually, no, we saw 7 bucks in there. Couple weren't shooters, but of all
Are you
those,
counting what Seth saw too?
no. I'm talking in the spot we hunt. I'm not talking about across the road.
Okay.
I'm not even counting that. I'm talking
Okay,
like in that
yeah.
spot, we'd seen 7, and there was like two or 3 not shooters, like 4 shooters. Anyways, none of them seemed to be the same deer every time we went in there. So it was like new deer, and it's like I was telling another buddy about it. I can't remember who I was talking to. Called a bunch of people on the way home, and I'm like, we literally never saw the same deer twice in like 3 or 4 days hunting that spot. So it's like every day you went in there, it's like I didn't really care. Like we had really good access getting in and out of it.
Yep.
But it's like you could hunt it, and if you screw up an opportunity, you could have a deer come by 6 hours later.
Oh, yeah.
It's his first time he came through in a week and a half. He don't know you're even there.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
is really cool. That's the difference between hunting out there, I feel like, than hunting back home.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you're hunting bucks that have like pretty tight home ranges. Like during the rut, it's a little bit different, but like you got bucks that are kind of in certain spots out there. It's like they are covering distance, and it's like you may get one opportunity at that buck, and he may be gone. You may never see him again, especially on some of these smaller parcels. Like you can't really relocate them. And you don't know what could come by. I mean, it could be 140-inch deer. It could be 190-inch deer.
Yeah.
By. You don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah. All right, we're going back. We're doing it. It's going to be fun. All right, so we got back from Kansas, jumped right into the pine goat hunting back here at home.
Yeah.
The day that we got back was the opening day of gun season, which you mentioned you had to get back for a family event. It was something for your brother. I went to it as well. And we were joking that's how you know that your brother Chris isn't a hunter, because he planned this event for 10 a.m.
On opening day.
on opening day of rifle.
Yeah, not Chris is my other brother. We didn't really talk about him on the podcast because they don't hunt any much. He's like, oh, I want to get back into hunting. I'm like, okay, it's not Thomas.
He's
Thomas,
killed some good bucks though.
Yeah, he's killed a couple bigger than I've killed in Alabama.
Yeah.
And every one of them freaking lucked up on it. I'm like, give me that luck, dude. God. Yeah, he's killed a couple of hammers, and he was just like, oh, let's go sit in the shooting house, and freaking 125-inch deer comes out. I'm like, you're kidding me, dude. Come
Yeah.
on.
That's ridiculous. These last couple days in Alabama, yeah, you described some of the hunts, but we're kind of chasing the rut right now a little bit. Like we're on this one area there. They're not really rutting yet, but it's getting pretty close. There's a lot of sign. There's some younger bucks that are bumping does around. So it's just been hunting with the daggum rifles, trying to make something happen.
Yeah, we I seen, was it? Yeah, it was open. No, it was. I hunted. Hold on, I'm gonna get all the weeks. Yeah, I didn't really hunt that weekend. I don't think. I hunted the following weekend, this past weekend, and saw one buck come out, legal buck, probably 2.5. He might be 3, but probably this 2-year-old had a freaking dagger on one side and a freaking 3-point side on the other. I'm like, that's the definition of a cool buck. I'm not shooting. And he was trailing some does and stuff like that. But you froze your freaking butt off, Mister not dressing correctly and thinking he was tougher than the weather.
Yeah,
The cold weather from Kansas followed us home.
yeah, that's I made a mistake. I got those the First Light lined 308 pants. So it's their hunting pant, and it's like fleece lined. So they're pretty warm. And I was wearing them the whole week in Kansas. I was like, oh yeah, these are awesome. I'm good to go with these things. And I was taking Tiffany's cousin hunting. He's 15, and I was taking him out, trying to get him a nice buck. And so I set him. I was getting in like really early because I had to walk him to his spot and everything, and get him all set up. And then I was hunting just like over the hill from about 200 yards away. So we walk in an hour before daylight, and when we leave the trucks, I don't understand why I did this. My bibs were already strapped to my backpack, and I took them off, and I left them in the truck because I was like, oh, I got these fleece lined pants, like it'll be fine.
just as a reminder, when you hunted Kansas,
Yeah.
you killed before the real cold front really hit.
Yeah, it was like the first day of the cold front where it like wasn't super cold
you
yet.
You didn't hunt in the 20s and low 30s like I did for the rest of the hunt.
I messed up.
Because you were like, I don't hunt with bibs. I'm like, yeah, you didn't hunt when it got real cold. You were already tagged out.
But that morning it wasn't freezing. It was like 35 degrees that morning, and I messed up. But in Kansas the day I killed it was in the 30s. That morning it was in the 30s. Okay. But it's like I'm gonna pull the Southerner card here. It's like there's no humidity. It wasn't humid out there.
You didn't hunt later in that hunt. It got cold as crap in Kansas. No.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying that day. That's what gave me my false confidence. Okay, I hunted that morning. I was like, it ain't that cold out here, and we got home and. At first, when I got out of the truck, we met you that morning
you were like,
to grab a chair. I got out and I was like, oh man, it's kind of got a bite to it.
Yeah,
like it's it's just bitter. I mean, the cold is just bitter. Like when it's real humid like that, and I'm like, oh yeah, this kind of sucks. And then we get back in the truck. We drive to our spot. When we get out at our spot,
turn the heat on. You're like, oh, I feel good now.
Yeah, I'm like getting all my stuff together out of the truck, and we're sitting there talking. Surprisingly, the first people at the gate got there about 4:30. I thought we'd get beat to the gate, but didn't get beat. And we're getting everything ready, staying there for about 10 minutes. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I don't think I need the bibs. And I bring the core vest, which is like a real heavy vest, real warm. And I'm like, I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to wear my hoodie and everything, and I'll be good to go. And I was trying to not take a lot of bulk in there because I was just trying to go fast. I don't know what I was thinking. So I get him dropped off. I go climb up my tree, and it's still like 45 minutes before shooting light. And I'm already starting to get cold. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. And dude, by like 7 a.m., I'm like jackhammering in that tree. I was shaking. There was a limb hanging out. I was hunting a little power line. And there was a limb hanging out in that power line, dude, and that thing was just like bouncing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, these deer are definitely going to see me. Ended up seeing a doe that morning, which, fun fact, that doe that I saw that morning was the first doe I had seen while hunting in Alabama since opening day of bow season.
You're a terrible hunter.
I guess I am, dude. Like, it's been rough this year. We had some questions in the Q&As.
That's really the first one?
Since opening day. I had those two does come by me opening day, and that's it. Every other time I've hunted in Alabama, which I didn't hunt a ton in October, compared to what I could have hunted, I was kind of keeping my powder dry, trying to get ahead with work and everything. So for Kansas, but like the last 2 years on our club, I've had zero issue getting on deer in October. This year with the drought, we had a really bad mast year. I could not get on deer. I could not. I walked just about every little hardwood spot on the club, couldn't find good feed sign. And when I did find good feed sign, I sat it and just didn't see anything. So, yeah. But anyways, yeah, I absolutely froze. I haven't been that cold in years, dude.
Listen, I told Greg Mayhair that. I called him and we were talking about it. And he's like, dude, he's like, I think he's like, I've spent too much money. I'm too old to be out there and be cold. He's like, I carry everything. He's like, I'm going to be warm. He's like, I didn't buy all this good gear in order to be cold in the tree. He's like, I don't play with it.
Well, it was kind of fun bringing Tiff's cousin because, kind of brought back some memories of when I was younger. I'm sure you can relate to this too. Like, we got out there and it's daylight now after we met back up. And I'm like, what gear do you, like, what clothes are you wearing? He's like, well, I got on a pair of gym shorts, a pair of blue jeans, then these coveralls over it. I'm like, oh, I bet you were cold this morning. He's like, yeah, it was pretty cold. I was like, man, that was me back before. You ever do it where you had you'd wear like gym shorts, a pair of sweatpants, and then you try to get your hunting pants over all that.
Oh, yeah. The sweatpants.
And you're just like Michelin Man.
This sweatpant move was the move. That's what I was going to say. It's like, dude, I never hunted really in jeans, but I had like jean material, like camo pants one time for when I was real young and it froze my butt off. But dude, we would always do we had like cotton long johns, white long johns.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And you put sweatpants on. And then I didn't put any hunting pants. We just had bibs, and I would just like put the bibs on over that, like some real cheap bibs that we'd get for Christmas, kids, and then freaking either rubber boots, insulated rubber boots, feet froze to death, or like real bulky hiking boots, like some like Rocky boots or something. and then feet would freeze because they sweat too much and you'd freeze. But yeah, the sweatpants underneath.
Did you ever throw the Walmart bags over the socks?
Dude, my mom did that, bro. I don't know if that's a thing, like where you got whoever's watching or listening from, where y'all come from, but like, dude, my mom was the one. She's like, put your socks on, put your feet in a Walmart bag and kind of tie it off a little bit and hold the heat in, and then stick that in your boot. And
it's the worst thing.
It hold the heat in for a little bit, and then it condensated like a greenhouse, and you got all the moisture in there, and your feet soaking wet. Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh my god!
But dude, that and like, dude, we lived off hot hands. Like,
oh yeah,
that was like back when still like hot hands would actually like legit burn you, and we'd have like hot hands all in us, and like jackets and beanies and all that kind of stuff. But like, yeah. I remember being pretty cold as a kid, but also when I grew up hunting, something with Anthony, my uncle. If we were in one of the shooting houses, we took a buddy heater with us.
Oh yeah,
like we hunted.
My dad had one of those when I was a kid.
Yeah, we hunted out stands and everything, but like it wasn't. There was a couple spots because like by the time I started really hunting the farm a good bit, a lot of it had already been clear cut, and he just had shooting houses in certain spots. So like 90% of the time you sat in a shooting house, so you would. I mean, there's a couple lock-ons you get in, but there wasn't any ladder stands, and it's just like, be a little chilly, but when you're shooting a house, it don't matter how cold it is, that wind's cut off you, you're like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Yeah, buddy.
Like, dude, this is the, this is it. But
dude, one time for Christmas, my mom got me this like military surplus wool long johns and shirts, and it was, I don't know, some like European like military surplus or something like that, and it was wool. It was some kind of wool. And I wore them like one time, and it was like this huge upgrade over the cotton stuff we'd been wearing.
Scratchy as crap.
Oh, it was super scratchy, and I washed it and dried it. Dude, I have never seen anything shrink like that. It looked like something, since it's almost Christmas time, it looked like something that Elf would wear. I mean, it was literally like a joke. Piper could wear it right now. My daughter's 1.5. And this went from being like a men's large to literally like a 2T size. It shrunk that much. So I got to wear it like one time, and then I didn't have them anymore. But yeah, now we're blessed, man. We got all this nice hunting apparel now. Yeah. All this stuff like didn't exist back then.
No, I mean, and like the one thing we always would get wrong was like never focus on base layers. Like you put like a cotton T-shirt on. Like we had so much clothing that was just straight cotton and like cotton long sleeve shirt. You get like a little sweaty going in, and also we were so bad, especially when we hunted the farm, because like you didn't have to walk super far. Like we'd park the truck at the house, and the furthest walk would be like if you went to the rock garden, which would be like, 10 minutes you're there. Okay, if you're walking, maybe 12 minutes, 15 minutes tops, and we would walk anywhere out there. If it was cold one morning, we'd have the bibs on, we'd have the boots on, we'd have all that stuff, jacket, and you just like Michelin Man walk out there, and you're like, oh, I'm super warm, but then you're like sweating.
Yep.
And you would never get dry, and you by 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, you'd be, teeth chattering.
Oh yeah. So that brings up something I was actually wanting to get into. I hunted a piece of public around here the other day. That it's a pretty freaking long walk to get in there. It's where it was. And when I got out of the truck, it was one of these real cold mornings. It was like 25 degrees. And when I got out of the truck, and I had on it's a First Light Yuma. Yeah. They're synthetic base layers in it, and they made it to be like a kind of like a hot weather thing, but it makes a really really good next to skin base layer for hunting down here. And normally, what you do when you have a long walk, like you're gonna sweat on this walk. Like it's a pretty strenuous walk. It's really long and it's kind of steep. And when you're walking in there, like you're just gonna sweat. So usually you would just wear that T-shirt in, and you're just gonna be cold for the first 5 minutes walking, and then you'll kind of get a little bit more comfortable. But still, like when you're walking in 25-degree weather with just that T-shirt on, it still kind of sucks. So I threw on that furnace hoodie over the top of it, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk in this. So here's what I'm getting at. It worked flawlessly. My plan worked flawlessly. And I wanted to bring this up because this goes into the base layer thing. If you've got good base layers, then it's gonna really help like wick that moisture away. So I'm walking in, and of course, like I work up a little sweat. Nothing crazy. Like I pace myself pretty good. Worked up a sweat. Wore the hoodie the entire way in.
The furnace hoodie is a merino hoodie, by the way.
Yeah, it's a merino wool hoodie.
Yeah.
So I've got synthetic next to skin, then I've got the merino wool hoodie. When I get to my spot, I get set up, throw my bibs on, and I just kind of sit there for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, kind of cooling off a little bit, and then I throw the core jacket on over it. I'm still a little bit damp from the sweat, and I throw that core jacket
Did
on.
you take the hoodie off or leave it
No,
on?
I left the hoodie on.
Oh.
Never took the hoodie off the entire time I hunted that day. In 5 minutes, I was bone dry and toasty warm. Never got cold the entire day. And that, my friends, is that like when you spend money on technical hunting apparel, that's what you're spending it on. And it's a good thing to bring up because, you know, some people are buying that stuff for Christmas right now. Maybe you're sending it to your wife or whatever, telling her to buy. I love merino wool base layers, but in certain situations like that, I really, really like that synthetic base layer, especially, again, hunting in a humid environment like the Southeast. That synthetic wicks away moisture so well that I was able to be comfortable on the walk in. I was able to wear my hoodie. I was very comfortable the whole walk in. And then 10 minutes, I'm completely dry.
Well, it's like the great example is the croc hunt. Not hunting crocodiles, but wearing Crocs where I left my boots. I had that Yuma shirt on, and that's all I wore the whole day, and you were freezing. Because we walked in, got sweaty.
I was wearing merino.
Yeah, and walked in long ways, sweated up a whole bunch. But like that Yuma dried so quick, and it wasn't that cold out. It was probably like in the 60s, something like that. Mm-hmm. But you got sweaty, wet.
Yep.
With merino base layer, and you were chilly, and I was fine. Like normally, I'm the one that gets super cold.
Yeah,
and I was literally fine hunting in that, and that's all I wore. I mean, I think I brought the Source jacket, like what you got on there, to put over the top of it. And I never had to put it on. But it's just because, like, the second we got up in that tree and everything, because what gets wet for me is my back.
Yeah, same.
And it dries out so much faster with that synthetic than the merino. So when I did in Kansas, one of the days when we already had the sticks prepped. And no, did we have the sticks prepped? Yeah, I think we had the sticks prepped in the tree. We were booking it in there, and it was 25 degrees, I think, that morning. And I wore the Yuma top. That was it, long sleeve Yuma synthetic shirt. I love the Corget Foundry pants. That is like my favorite pant. A little heavier pant, but it's not lined or anything. Got the hip vents, and I had my furnace quarter zip and my furnace bottom like leggings with me. I didn't have them on. I just packed them in with my core kit. And we go walking, and I'm like, I am freezing, dude, walking. But within 5 minutes, like you're warmed up. By the time we get to the tree, I'm warmed up and all that kind of stuff. I hung the stand, got up with my saddle and everything. Caden came up there, and I got dressed in the stand, and I took the Yuma off, like kind of air dry. Took it completely off, stuffed it in my bag, and put the furnace quarter zip over the top next to skin. After I was done moving, I wasn't like sweating up anymore. Dude, that was the move, dude. Like I'm telling you, dude, if you can get in dry or dry off when you get to the tree and just put that merino back on once you're completely dry and put it back on, especially on your top, and also did the leggings. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. That's why when they talk about like a moisture wicking setup, the thing about merino, it is a really, really good material. And if we have low humidity and it's really cold, I actually prefer the merino. So that's when I'll wear my merino base layers next to skin. Like I'll wear the wick or something like that next to skin. But when it's the higher humidity and it's just like bitter cold, that synthetic is where it's at, because like I don't like walking in a t-shirt when it's 25 degrees. You can do that, and it's a it works, but I don't like to do that. Yeah. I would rather wear my hoodie,
get some diamond cutters,
walk in and be comfortable. But that's why that clothing system works so well, because that merino is really warm, and it also will help wick that moisture. So that synthetic like moves that moisture off your skin so fast. And then it moves through that merino and it moves out into the big jacket and it's off of you, and now you're comfortable. So I just, again, wanted to throw that out there for anyone who's interested in gear or layering. If you're thinking about getting technical hunting apparel, and I bring it up because kind of like you said earlier, base layers, if you're looking at any technical hunting apparel company, it doesn't even have to be First Light or anything like that, any technical hunting apparel company, if you have no like good apparel and you're starting from scratch and you're buying new stuff, if you have a choice between buying the $400 jacket or buying the $80 base layers, start with the base layers. Don't buy the jacket without the base layers. I seriously would not buy a jacket without getting the base layers first, because you can have the nicest jacket out there, but if you're wearing cotton underneath it, like, you're going to be cold.
Yeah.
And that's what happened on that hunt you're talking about, where I got soaking wet walking in, and that merino, the thing about wool is it maintains its like whatever percentage of its insulation even when it's wet, but it doesn't dry that quickly. And so that was the problem on that hunt. I threw my jacket on, and and I was still kind of cold because it was that next
You
to
didn't have a
skin.
jacket on.
Yeah, I did. I brought. I think it was this one.
On the power line hunt?
Oh no.
Oh, which hunt are you talking about now?
The one,
The long hike.
the long hike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay.
No, I was wearing a vest and a hoodie.
That's
on
what I'm
that
saying.
one.
I'm like, you froze to death. It didn't matter what you had on. How dry
Yeah, I
you
didn't
were.
have
You were gonna
enough.
be cold.
I didn't have a big enough jacket on that
But
one.
on the other hunt, you put your jacket on, it dried out and everything, which is a good point.
Yeah, to the point where like it kind of surprised me.
And it comes down to also, are you a person that sweats a lot, or are you kind of a more moderate sweater? Because I've met people, especially like back when I was playing sports in high school, I knew guys that like, and some of them were like bigger dudes that just did not sweat a whole bunch. You can get away a lot more with, wearing a little bit more layers if you just don't sweat as much as other people. I sweat a lot. Feet sweat, legs will sweat, upper body sweat, head, it all sweats. So like I like to wear minimalist stuff going in, like just synthetic, absolutely no layers on the leg other than just my pants. And the cool thing is I was going to say about the furnace, they're the boot height bottoms, base layers like leggings, is they have the full side zips. That's the ones I have. And you can literally drop your pants at the tree. I've got boxers on underneath. Okay, guys. I ain't going.
Going full moon.
Yeah, I ain't doing none of that. But anyways, gotta watch out for trail cameras while you're out there. Okay? And but anyways, I can put them on. They zip up super easy when you're at the base of the tree. Pull your pants back up. I like wearing suspenders. Put the suspenders back over the top. And it allows you to be able to kind of air dry your legs before you put those merino base layers on.
Yeah.
Before you climb the tree, and it changes. It is so much better than trying to walk in with them on. If you're having to go any distance. Now, if you're hunting private land and you're literally walking 150 yards to your tree, you can get away a little bit more than the guys walking like some of the stuff that we're doing, half mile, 3/4 of a mile from the truck. You're going in there. You're going to get a lot more sweaty working, a longer distance getting into a spot. So you kind of, play with that. That's one thing I hear. Like guys, they'll ask us like about like the new phase of core kit from First, like the bibs and jacket setup. Well, how is it walking through the woods wearing it? Like, does it get briars? I'm like, I never wear my bibs or heavy jacket through the woods unless like maybe I'm slip hunting or something like that, and I'm just going a little bit. I'm never going distance wearing it, so I'm like, I can't really tell you because like I don't do that. Like I strip down even when I get out of the tree, take my bibs off, take my jacket off, maybe leave a hoodie on or whatever. So I'm not completely freezing going back to the truck if it's real cold, and just do that just so I don't have to get all sweaty. Also, one thing. If you do get super sweaty walking out, like I did this a couple days ago, it was pretty freaking cold. I wore my core jacket out, which I am in love now with the core system.
Oh yeah,
I've been wearing that almost every single hunt, and it packs real nice. But get real sweaty in the jacket, and when I get back to the truck, I intentionally, when I take my arms out of that jacket, I pull them inside out, and I put it in my cab of my truck to like dry off. Because if you get real sweaty inside of a jacket or something like that, or bibs, and you put it up wet and it doesn't have time to dry out, if you put it back on, it's still damp, you're going to get chilly.
Yeah.
So, like, make sure you, like, kind of air dry your stuff. And also have, a boot dryer, clutch.
Must have.
Literally have not used the boot dryer now for probably 3 years. And it changes, especially if you're wearing hiking boots or especially rubber boots. You get sweaty in them. Put them on the boot dryer, let them dry out.
Every night.
Every night. Take them off in the morning. I let mine cool off a little bit before I put my feet in there, because if not, it's like 95 degrees and your feet instantly start sweating.
Yeah, I'll wear my tennis shoes and I'll throw my boots in the truck and put them on when I get there.
I normally do that, but that's how I left my boots at the house when you picked me up, because I had Hey Dudes on. So anyway, but yeah, it's like just those simple things will make you so much warmer. But yeah, like I'm telling you, like the furnace bottoms and the furnace quarter zip is my favorite. Like when it gets chilly, like it gets down in the 30s, that's my favorite thing to wear.
Yeah, I love those furnace bottoms too, like the long johns. One thing I've started doing this year is, since I got those lined pants, so the fleece lined pants, they've got side vents on them as well. I've actually started wearing those on almost every hunt with no long johns on underneath them, and then I just pack in bibs and use that as and it works really good.
That's why I use,
because I don't like wearing long johns really, if I can help it. Because I don't like having that many waistbands. You got your underwear, you got your long johns, and you got your pants.
You don't wear boxer briefs. You wear those boxers. So that sucker's all bunched up like that.
I wear boxer briefs.
Okay, you grew up a little bit. I'm proud of you.
Well, it depends on the situation. Listen, I got.
Are you free balling out there?
Yeah, bro. Boxers? We're going commando.
No, ain't no way.
No. Anyways, but I really like that setup with the bibs. And another thing, like I never wear the bibs. One thing I did the other day though is actually I do this kind of often. If I'm gonna do like slip hunting, still hunting around, which I did the other day, I will, especially when it's really cold. I will wear the bibs and I'll slip hunt in them, and they almost act as a check to make sure that you're going slow enough. Because if I'm wearing my super heavy bibs and I start sweating, that tells me that I'm moving too fast and I need to slow down. Or if I'm starting to get a little bit hot or overheated. So I like when you're slip hunting or still hunting, you should be moving slow enough that you're cold, right? Like you shouldn't be moving.
Depends on the air temperature. If it's 55 degrees out.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm saying if it's cold outside, if it's in the 30s, then and you're wearing that setup, like if it's cold outside, you should be able to wear it and move and not sweat. Like that's how you know that you're going slow enough. Like if you're wondering for like a way to kind of gauge how fast you should still hunt, that's about how fast you should still hunt. You should go very, very, very slow.
Yeah. One other thing, just because we're talking about gear, one thing I've been very impressed with, and I was, be honest, when I first got it, I was a little nervous, like because I like wearing a big backpack.
Oh, dude, I know, yeah.
Dude, that Latitude Ranger 22 pack, when I first got it, I'm like, this thing's tiny. It's not going to work for me because I normally use like the First Light transfer bag. It's a big bag, and I've loved that bag just from like storage ability. Like I can put so much stuff in it and I can pack a deer out with it. I get that little Ranger 22. I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. I started hunting with it. Dude, I can carry. Let me tell you.
I told you. I was telling you. You didn't believe me. I told you.
It carries so well with the waist belt. Dude, let me tell you this. This is Kansas. I had my core bibs, my core jacket, my furnace hoodie, a full tree stand. I put I got one of these little lock-on tree stands. Not lock-on brand, but one of these Elevate tree stands I put on there that I've had for a few years now. All on there in my climbing sticks. And I could carry it perfectly. Plus all my other stuff, my beanie, face mask, gloves, rattle antlers. Carry like a freaking dude. That thing can carry so much more stuff than I thought it could. It is impressive.
I told you.
But like even when I'm saddle hunting, like with my profile platform, my sticks. Sometimes I put my saddle in there, but a lot of times I wear the saddle in that Lone Star saddle. But like again, core bibs, core jacket, and all my other stuff in there. Water bottle. It carries so stupid well. It blows my mind because the backpack's not big. Because the cool thing is when you have a smaller backpack, when you hang it in the tree with you, it makes it so much better because it's not hanging way down. It's not like really in your way. But yeah, it works out great. The only thing I haven't tried yet, because I just ain't killed one to pack it out, is I kind of want to try to pack a deer out with it. Problem is I can't do it if I have all my gear on there. I saw one guy online. He packed one out with it. It would work pretty good. Maybe slightly too small for that, but I'm going to try to test it. But that pack is freaking sweet. I've been very, very impressed with like the packability of it, getting all your layers on there.
Yeah, I love that backpack too. Is there any other gear that from this season?
Dude, I feel like talk about that sharpener again because we have we have zero affiliation with this brand. Love to have affiliation with them.
Yeah,
but we don't.
They're listening. It's called a Warthog knife sharpener.
It is the best knife sharpener I have literally ever used. Like I've got it's in my pocket.
Bar none. It is ridiculous.
I didn't bring it, but like
it comes with these little ceramic sharpeners. Those are the ones that I use.
Yeah,
dude, I took that sucker. We were at the Airbnb. I was sharpening their knives at there. I'm like, they ought to appreciate that, bro. Those things you castrate a fly with it now.
I'm telling you.
That thing gets every knife I've run through it so sharp. Again, no affiliation whatsoever with this company. Yeah. It is just that good. It's like the V-Sharp sharpener from Warthog. Dude, they're phenomenal.
It's like a table sharpener. It's something you're not packing in hunting with it. It's something you keep at the house.
Yeah, it's like spring loaded. It makes a V, and you run your knife through it,
and you calibrate it to each blade and the blade angle. It'll calibrate. You can watch videos on it. Super easy. But dude, like I had one of my bench knives, which I pretty dulled up quite a bit.
Yeah,
and I ran it through that thing 8 times maybe. And it came off, and dude, I'm shaving hair with it. I'm talking stupid sharp, and I'm like, that is literally. It's the best. It is the best knife sharpener I've ever used. It doesn't just tear off a bunch of metal like some of these other knife sharpeners, like the band sharpeners and everything.
Oh yeah,
That just shave off a lot of metal on your blade. It works so.
Oh yeah, like hard. You can't even tell it takes anything off the blade. Yeah. There's just like like that ceramic. It'll get a little discolored, and there's like a fine powder on it where it's not taking a lot off of that blade.
I'm telling you, it is amazing because like there's nothing better than having a super razor sharp knife with you.
Oh, dude, you know those knives that we bought at the GON Expo? Yeah. What was that brand called? Do you remember?
Custom knife guys out of Georgia. I forgot.
Man, I've been just so excited to cut a deer up with that knife.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, dude. I told Seth when I pulled that knife out of my pack when we were cutting up that buck in Kansas, I was like, "This is how you know I was confident in the spot. I brought the good knife." I was like, I knew we were gonna kill something, dude. That thing I'm talking about was like hot butter, like a knife through hot butter with that deer. It was freaking awesome. It performed very well.
It's a hot knife through butter, not hot.
Hot butter,
not knife through hot butter.
knife through. Oh well,
hot knife through butter.
well,
God.
Hot butter, it cuts easy too.
I mean, you take a spoon to that. Yeah. I mean,
So, anyways, no, it did extremely well. It was still sharp when we got done, but I used that little warthog sharpener and I ran it through like 10 times. And this knife, when we bought this knife, you could take your arm and you could just lay it on your arm and just like shave your whole arm in one stroke. Like barely any pressure. It was like the sharpest knife I've ever held, like hunting knife I've ever held. And yeah, I ran it through there like 10 times, right back to factory sharp. So super, super impressed. Great stocking stuffer for the hunter in your
you need
life.
a big stocking, but yeah. But
Yeah.
no, I gotta buy one.
They're great for your kitchen knives too, man. If you got dull kitchen knives, if you buy one of those things, it'll bring them back because it comes with a couple different sharpening surfaces. I like the ceramic. That's for a knife that's not like crazy dull. If you have one that needs to be like redone, they've got like some diamond sharpeners, and that's where like you got to rebevel the sucker and everything. So if you've got some like old crappy kitchen knives that really need to be fixed up, it'll work for that too. So you run it through those diamond sharpeners, get a good bevel back on it, and then put those ceramics on there. And they even have one that are stainless steel for like that extra polish. I haven't really used those yet, but you can actually use those and it'll get it back to super sharp.
Yeah, I got to buy one. They had a little sale, but it's like $100 for like the sharpener and everything. And I'm like, I got to get one just because I've got my other custom knives. It's in my truck and like haven't used it in a little while because I got it dull to the point where like I don't really want to use like one of my cheap sharpeners, so I need to come over to the house and use yours.
Oh yeah,
kind of like tone it up.
You got to run it through there.
But dude, it is so freaking awesome because it's nice to have a bigger, well-built blade that's like razor sharp than have like because I got like a Havalon knife, and they're nice, but they're also kind of annoying to use because you can break the blade so easy working on a deer, especially if you're cutting like a joint or something, like cutting the head off of like a buck after you cape them or something. You can break a blade super easy. But
I like to have lawns for certain things, but I like having like a good fixed blade knife for really breaking down a deer. So yeah, I agree. But yeah, that $100, dude, best $100 I ever spent.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else gear wise? Been super impressed with just super impressed with those Latitude sticks for real. Mm-hmm. I know you've been kind of one sticking still a good bit, at least back home, but like those things are absolutely sweet. Especially like I put the one step aiders on them, and like we use those in Kansas, and it got me to like the perfect height where I could get a little bit high. I got short legs, guys. I don't have long legs. The only thing I realized was I cannot climb the single step aiders with my bibs on. Don't have the flexibility. I was about cussing up a storm. We moved stands, moved trees, and me and Kaden and I was get up this twisted up freaking oak tree. Had a doe 60 yards from us feeding, and the wind's ripping. I'm like, she can't see me, she can't hear me, she can't smell me. I'm getting up this tree.
Wrong.
And, no, she didn't.
Oh
no, she just kept feeding. No, it's not the one that bust. We had another one bust us later on another hunt, but. Anyways, but dude, I could with my bibs on, my core bibs. I just did not have the flexibility to get those feet through it, dude. I was pissed. Had to unzip them and everything, made it work. But like, anyway, but those aiders are super nice. I really like having those on there just because you can get a little bit higher. I mean, it gets me from like again short leg, 4 sticks, getting maybe like 16 plus feet maybe to the platform, to now I can get well over 18, probably right around 20 feet or so.
Yep.
Which has been nice. But other than that,
you got, just to wrap us up here, you got a SOA hunt starting up. So
Tyler, you the man.
What's the plan?
Dude, so one of our Patreon members and listeners, Tyler, he invited me as his guest to this HOA hunt. It's the first gun hunt on this place.
HOA hunt?
Or SOA. HOA, yeah, we hunt the Homeowners Association, baby. I'm talking urban deer, baby, corn-fed, bird feeder fed. Nah, SOA hunt on a place I've never hunted before, probably one of the best SOAs in the state. And anyways, it actually happens. This episode comes out Thursday, and we will be down there Thursday. Thursday through Sunday. I can only hunt till like Saturday morning, but Me and him are going to go down there. I really want him to kill a really nice deer. He already killed a hammer, killed his first deer with a bow this year. Freaking excellent buck.
Yep.
So we're going to try to get on some bucks down there. But I told him, I'm like, dude, it's the first gun hunt on the place. They have not had a gun hunt yet. It's been just bow hunting. Super cold weather. It's going to be in the 20s first 2 days while we're down there, the lows.
Okay.
I'm like, we have a chance at killing a really good deer, like legitimately on these food plots, roadbed crossings. Like it's not rut, it's not even pre-rut really down there. They're going to be laying down a little bit of sun, but not much probably. I'm like, it's going to be bed to food pattern, and this place sets up, I mean, absolute perfect for it. So I am very thrilled. Like, God, I hope he can kill a big deer. I hope I can kill a big deer. I'll be so happy. So yeah, probably one of the best chances.
I'm gonna once again jinx you and say I'll be shocked if you go down there.
Why do you say that?
I'm just saying. I'm saying I got confidence in you.
God,
I got confidence, bro.
I swear.
You better not screw this up, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Don't screw it up.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
But anyways, that'll be pretty good. I got to ask him. I don't really care about shooting pigs. There's gonna be some pigs. Mm-hmm. I don't know, might get a wild hair one afternoon to shoot a pig, but like I really don't care to. But he might go down there and start waxing pigs. I'm like, you have fun with it. Shoot whatever you want. We can shoot does, buck.
I'm going after a pig this year at some point. I'm diversify the freezer a little bit.
They're just, unless you head shoot them, God, if you shoot them, it gets anywhere in the stomach. Those suckers are so nasty, so nasty.
Yeah, dude. One comes out, you get a little 60-pounder come out in a food plot, just dome that thing.
And if it gets 20 yards, boom. Okay, cool. We're good. Get some skinny little pork chops. But yeah. Anyways, I'm very excited though about that hunt. So that hunt takes place this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. And then other than that, it's just finally getting good in Alabama. You know, all these other people. If you're in the Midwest, you're watching this. Or Northeast, wherever, it's kind of, you're kind of done for potentially. You know, rut activity's done unless you're going to hunt late season. It's miserable conditions. It is just now getting good in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, southern Arkansas. Like, it's just now getting good. So,
yep.
We get season all the way through February 10th, which I hate hunting late season in Alabama. It's not fun on public. I've never had any luck. But it's about to get the time where it is kill mode.
Yes,
opportunity.
definitely.
Look out there, look for some taxidermy bills.
That's right.
And some summer sausage. Weaver meat summer sausage.
Yes, sir.
So, anyway.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Got anything else?
No, that's all I got, man. Hopefully next week we'll be talking about a big old buck that one of us gets. So that's all I got, man.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Well, I appreciate everybody watching the podcast. Appreciate you listening to the podcast. Also, everybody that's listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, we appreciate everybody that's been leaving us 5-star reviews. And specifically, everybody's leaving us reviews on Apple Podcasts, written reviews. So if you enjoy the podcast and you're a listener, you're not a viewer, go leave us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. And like Andrew mentioned earlier on, if you have some Q&As, you want to write in some questions for us to answer on these Thursday episodes, again, either if you've already done it, resubmit one with the video aspect of it. Again, record yourself kind of asking the question so we can kind of use that for the podcast. Or if you have a new question, go over to the website, go over to the link down below, listener Q&A, and get those submitted. Also, thank you to everybody who submitted your listener success stories. Y'all have been killing some absolute hammers. The last 3 weeks have been insane. Just had like 3 or 4 more come in last night. So appreciate everybody that's been submitting your listener success story. So if you go out there, you implement something that you learned from the podcast, whether it's from us, from the podcast guests, whatever, you have success, kill yourself a nice buck, kill you anything, really. Write in. Again, there's a link down below, but also on the website, thesouthern.outdoorsman.com. There's a tab that says listener success story. Submit your story there along with your buck or photo of your deer. And then also, what you learned from the podcast, how it helped you out, and a little bit of story of the deer. So I know in the off season, we're kind of get back to interviewing some of those guys or some of you all that's, killed some deer. So appreciate everybody submitting them. It's been a wild year so far, and we still have a lot of season left. So appreciate y'all watching the podcast. Thank y'all for listening. We'll catch you back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.